Greetings and salutations. My name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another episode of the Deadlockathon, a series of videos where I go over every single character in Valve's not so secret hidden game, Deadlock. I'll be going in alphabetical order, so from Abrams to Yamato. I'll be covering their lore and personality, their gameplay and abilities, as well as their design. And please do keep in mind that everything I talk about is subject to change at a later date, because this game is still a work in progress, and that's just kind of a nature with a game that is, still actively being worked on. And if you wish to play Deadlock for yourself, I'll throw my Steam name up on screen, and all you have to do is subscribe, and I'll send you a code. Not really, bad plug, but that's besides the point. Please do keep in mind though, it takes about 1 to 2 days to actually show up after I've sent a code. But with that said, our object of obsession for today is the Gargoyle come to life. That being Ivy. Now, as I do in all of these videos, I would like to start by talking about her lore, as well as mentioning any other tidbits of information or bits and pieces, as well as her personality, because they all kind of just go into one another. The reason I put lore and personality together is because a character's story influences their personality, so it makes it easy to, discuss them at the same time. But with that said, I would like to start by reading off Ivy's in-game background. The Gargoyle didn't know what was happening when it sprang to life, just that a big human and a small human were being hurt. And so, the Gargoyle leapt to action, sending the attackers fleeing in horror. The small human said thank you and asked the Gargoyle's name. The Gargoyle didn't have one, and so this small human said, "I'm going to call you Ivy." The Gargoyle, being covered in ivy at the time, thought it was a bit obvious, but decided to go along with it for the small human's sake. The humans asked if Ivy would come home with them so they could show their appreciation, and so Ivy walked with them. That night she learned much. The family were called the Arroyos, and the little one Sophia. Mofongo is what they called a plate of deliciousness, but most importantly, she learned that the people attacking them were called the Mendoza Syndicate, and they were hurting people, nice people like the Arroyos. 18 years have passed since the day that the Arroyos took Ivy home, and during that time she made it her mission to dismantle the Mendoza Syndicate and free Spanish Harlem from its grasp. However, the thing about dedicating your life to a single pursuit for nearly 2 decades is that you don't really know what to do once you achieve it. For the first time in her life, Ivy is prepared to venture outside of Spanish Harlem and see what the world has to offer beyond vigilante justice. I like Ivy's lore quite a lot. I like that it gives us a little insight into other parts of, the cursed apple, as I now know it as, because obviously New York City is called the Big Apple, but in Deadlock's world it's called the cursed apple for obvious reasons, all the supernatural shit. And speaking of supernatural shit, how did Ivy even really come to be? Is this just are we going to just kind of chalk this up to a maelstrom or a weird occult thing again? They don't I've read through her entire wiki page, I've searched everywhere. I cannot find a reason of why she is actually, alive. So, if anyone asks me, how on earth is a gargoyle come to life? I got no clue. I know nothing. But, speaking of some other lore tidbits besides her background, which, by the way, I do think her background is, decent enough. I don't really have too much to say on it. I had to record this section about 5 times because I kept trying to find something to say, but I could not for the life of me really say anything more. So, it kind of just comes with the territory sometimes. I mean, it's neat. It's fine enough background. It kind of tells us what a deal is. But, speaking of some other lore tidbits about her, we know that her sister, Sophia, is actually studying at university under none other than Dynamo. And there are some funny lines between Ivy and Dynamo about that fact. So, for example, when Ivy kills Dynamo, she'll say something like, "I hope this doesn't look bad on Sophia," or something, something along those lines, like she doesn't want Sophia to suffer the punishment of her killing her professor. Some of the other people amongst her family is Carlos Arroyo, who is the father of the family, and he is a first grade teacher who is running an election campaign for the mayor of New York, which everyone's favourite Billy thankfully reminds us of. Billy calls out Ivy's naivety, because I will admit, due to her young age, Ivy is quite naive on a lot of things, and Billy, in all of his wisdom, calls her out on her naivety and says, you're just a You're just a pawn in a game for him to become mayor. You're nothing, blah, blah, blah. And he'd being a dickhead as always. But pardon my tongue, pardon my swearing. She also has a little brother called Manny, who is a fan of Kelvin, who is another character in the cast, of course. And here's a fun fact. I think I mentioned this earlier. If I haven't, here's a reveal. Ivy actually is one of the characters who has a visual novel. That meaning she joins alongside, I believe, Holiday and Lady Geist on characters who have visual novels. Hers is very much unfinished, just like the rest of them. And the only thing you can really do with it right now is hear the audio for it. There's no like images outside of like a few concept arts. Like in the previous video on Infernus, I showed off the concept art for a character called Cade Dents, who I believe it's Cade Dents. I know how I had one of my comments pointed that out. I think that's how you say it now, Cade Dents. That was actually from Ivy's visual novel. But besides that, like a few concept art pieces, we don't have anything. If you're curious what the visual novel is going to follow, I do need to put a trigger warning for the word that I'm about to say. It's really, really scary, and it begins with a J. Ivy's visual novel will show her efforts to get a job! Yeah, Ivy's visual novel is about her getting a job and supporting the Arroyos after, having completed her goal of destroying the Mendoza Syndicate, who, if you're not aware, is just kind of like I don't want to say stereotypical, but kind of a stereotypical crime syndicate. Like, they just kind of are bad guys, and they run Spanish Harlem, and they're like gang members and stuff. Like, we don't really know much about them. We do know, though, that the leader of them, Mendoza, has not actually been defeated per se by Ivy. He's kind of just gone into hiding, and he could show up at a later date, and I have a big feeling that will be the case, as per some voice lines from Vindicta and the Doorman. There is a hint that a close relative of Ivy's will die. The Doorman's exact line, if I remember rightly, is that someone close to you will die and you will not be able to do anything about it. Because, the Doorman, as I'm sure most of you know, during his ultimate, he will have, character-specific lines where he mocks them for their weakest things or darkest secrets. But Ivy is actually so innocent and so, lovely that he doesn't have anything to say nasty about her. I think he even admits that. So he instead just says, someone close to you is going to die, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Ta-ta for now, as he chunks you out of the hotel. It's interesting, and I think, obviously, Mendoza being left alive is going to play into that fact. But besides that, some other little tidbits about her before I move on to, talking about her voice lines and such, is that she's referred to by a few characters, as I'll show in a voice line in a minute, as the savior of Spanish Harlem. But she, again, in a voice line, admits that she does not like the nickname whatsoever, and she was just doing what she could she was doing the right thing. She has a lot of, moving on to her voice lines, so she does have a lot of stuff kind of like that, where she almost doubts herself or downplays her actions. I'm going to, in a moment, play a voice line between her and Abrams, where she kind of just doubts herself, and it's just I can't tell if she has two such. She's incredibly sweet. Ivy is really, really lovely. No one has a bad word to say about her. I mean, if the Doorman doesn't have anything bad to say about you, you gotta be pretty goddamn nice. The Doorman's got something to say on everybody during his ultimate. But yeah, she's just a really sweet person. I mean, just for example, Holiday literally says, Ivy, it's hard not to say nice things about you. If that doesn't say what Ivy is like as a person, I don't know what does. But the characters that are a bit more, not sort of criminal in a sense, are quite, not fans of her per se. I mean, Ivy doesn't like criminals. She really doesn't like Wraith and Yamato, sort of these more not vigilante, criminal-esque characters. Yamato, if I remember, is literally part of the Yakuza. And Wraith is, a literal criminal. She runs an illegal gambling thingamajig. So, of course, Ivy, someone who took down a crime syndicate, is not going to like criminals. Shocker. But someone like Vindicta points out her sort of naivety. She says, this is the line I was referencing earlier. She says that Ivy, for now, Ivy, some might mistake your naivety for charm, but believe me when I say it's dangerous. And if you don't smarten up soon, someone you care about is going to be hurt. I don't know, guys. Do you think one of her family members might die at a later date? I don't know. But then characters who are, you know, as I mentioned earlier, Holiday, she's literally a sheriff. Of course she's going to be on the side of the law. And she says it's hard to not say nice things about you. She's nice to Kelvin. I mean, come on, man. Lash. Lash is nice to her? Lash? Whoa, Lash? The Lash? The Lash. That guy? That's kind of crazy. Like, it's funny. Like, Lash literally says, looking forward to working with you, Ivy. Really, you're the only person in New York that Mendoza hates more than me, and that is impressive. And then Ivy replies with, everyone told me you were going to be mean to me. And Lash replies with, probably the nicest thing he's ever said, stupid people tend to say stupid things. That was my terrible Lash impression. I'll do more of it when we get to him. I'm sure you can't wait. But with that now said, I am now going to play the voice line between Abrams and Ivy, where she kind of expresses her distaste for the nickname that she has been given by, I don't know where that nickname comes from, probably just like one of those ones where one person says it and then everyone starts saying it, blah blah blah. But either way, this is what the voice line sounds like.
So, you're the savior of Spanish Harlem, huh?
I really hate that nickname.
Not looking to be deified.
I just wanted to make my neighborhood safe.
Like, in that voice line, she's quite, you could almost take it as like humble, like she's kind of humble about, you know, keeping her neighborhood safe, and she doesn't want a title that sounds all grand and defined. But through some other voice lines with Abrams, she kind of, like Abrams says, humility is good, but word of advice, don't undervalue your worth. I think that implies that she's not really being humble per se, but she's almost like trying to downplay her actions, like, oh, it's not good enough or something along those lines. Like she's not doubting what she did, she's doubting what she had to do to complete her mission. Because as per a voice line between her and Rafe, she does admit that she has, or no, a voice line between her and Vindicta, she admits that she had to kill some people to, you know, take down the Mendoza Syndicate. And for someone who is quite clearly young, sort of naive, etc., killing someone at that age, that would kind of have an effect on what you did. And like, sure, you completed your job, but are you doubting yourself because you had to kill a few bad people to get there? Like, I don't know. I think that's probably why she kind of sounds like she kind of downplays her actions and doubts herself a little, but I do not know. I got no clue. But before I move on to her gameplay and abilities, I must mention that she is one of the characters who actually has a confirmed voice actor, that being Jeannie Tirado, who I know mostly as Kujo Sara from Genshin Impact, Pan from Dragon Ball Super Superhero, yes, that is actually the title of that film, though some of you also may know her as Byleth from Fire Emblem. I don't really know anything about Fire Emblem. The only thing I know is that I groaned when I saw Byleth revealed for Smash Ultimate way back when, but I'm sure that was a feeling that many others shared. Was Byleth cool gameplay-wise? Yeah. Was it really exciting for her to be the final character of DLC 1's pass? No, not really. Kind of have to end and start these things off as a bang, really. Like, if she was the fourth character amongst this, was it 6 characters? I don't think anyone would have been really that bothered, but like, either way, I'm going off on a tangent. But yeah, I think Ivy, personality-wise, is really sweet. I do like a lot of her voice lines between the characters. She's a very kind person, as I said, but she does seem to have sort of these rumblings of doubting herself and these rumblings of a tragic future, such as, you know, a close family member of hers dying. God knows where that would go. I'm really intrigued to see how they handle the story in this game, considering it's probably going to be a live service multiplayer game. The last game that tried to handle a story in a live service fashion was Overwatch 2, and that didn't really turn out that well, did it? It didn't really turn out that well. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see where they go with, like, well, the entire game story, but like Ivy specifically, because now it's been multiple times that they've hinted at, you know, a tragic future for her. But anyways, with that said, we are now going to move on to her gameplay and abilities. Please do keep in mind for this section I'll be recording my audio and gameplay footage in OBS simultaneously, so if I sound a bit different, that's exactly why. But with that said, we are now going to officially, even though I just said it 2 seconds ago, move on to her gameplay and her abilities. Right, so here we are in the ever so lovely and ever so helpful training range to talk about Ivy's gameplay. And before we move on to any abilities or talk about any, let's start with her gun, known as Protector's Hand. This is basically an SMG as well, similar to Infernus's from the last episode. It has a 33 magazine count, which, and it, you know, it's a relatively standard SMG that she reloads in a really weird fashion. It's not hit scan. No gun in this game is hit scan, to my knowledge. I think the only thing in this game that is actually hit scan is like Vindicta's sniper shot. But even then, like, her normal bullets aren't hit scan. Ivy's bullets aren't hit scan, but they basically might as well be. I mean, you can see how quickly they're traveling. Like, that's nearly instant. This gun is surprisingly decent, to the point that you can, you know, do a gun Ivy build. It's very solid in lane, very good at sort of killing enemies, very good at securing souls, like it, because, you know, it's basically hit scan outside of, you know, really long distances. So it's good at securing souls, good at killing enemies in lane, and it's, you know, good at dealing damage to enemies as well, because of its large magazine count, and its weirdly quick reload time. Like, how long is the reload time on this thing, actually? It is 2.44 seconds. That's not bad. Like, that's not bad at all. And of course, as I said, you can do a gun build because the magazine is so big, so many bullets, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, solid gun, good enough that it can be used as a gun build, which is usually a telltale sign of a gun being good. Like, someone like, say, I don't know, Lady Geist. I never seen a gun build on Lady Geist, but I'm sure, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that does exist. I'm going to be real. I've been trying to force gun builds on almost every character for the longest time. After this video is done and dusted, I want to go do a doorman gun build, like. But anyways, enough. Getting sidetracked, right? So yeah, her gun is solid, decent, good SMG, good up. It's better up close, of course, because you know, it's an SMG. And design-wise, I actually think the gun's quite cool. But again, getting ahead of myself, we'll talk about the design in a minute. But the first of her abilities is known as white man tries to pronounce word that doesn't look familiar. Kudzu? Kudzu? I think that's how you say that. Kudzu bomb. It has a 6-meter radius, a 4-second duration, a 32-second cooldown, and it summons a patch of choking vines that damage and slow enemies in its radius. It does 55 damage per second, which scales with spirit, and the negative move speed penalty is 35%. And it looks as such. You kind of like hold this little green ball in your hand, see a sort of area where it will end up, throw it, and you create this sort of area of vines that wiggle about for some reason. And as you saw there, I forgot to turn on no cooldown. As you can see, you know, does decent damage. And to, of course, show the slowing effect, you know, decent slow. Now, I must mention this immediately. Ivy is, for lack of a better term, a support character. No character in this game is solely support. They are basically just a bunch of pseudo supports. Like, just as an example, Kelvin can be a support because his ice bombs actually can heal on hit. Like, as you can see on the second upgrade, Frost Grenade heals on friendly targets, which scales with Spirit. So he can be a pseudo support. He can also obviously use the Frozen Shelter to help people and protect them. Paige as well is a pseudo support. She literally has an ability that only benefits someone else. I mean, she can place it on herself, but gain bonus weapon damage. Paige has got one of the worst guns in the game. No offense to any Paige fans, but her gun is not very good damage-wise. Well, it can be, but you know what I mean. Like, you could either place this on yourself, or you could place the barrier on Drifter, or Paradox, or anyone that has an actual better gun than you, which is like 99% of the cast. But even then, Paige isn't solely a support, because she can do some serious damage with Dragon and Captivating Reed. Like, no one in this game is just a support. Speaking of as well, Viscous. Viscous can be a pseudo support. But Ivy, just as I was saying, is a pseudo support. And a lot of her abilities fall into this category, including the Kudzu bomb. Because although it does, you know, it can do some decent damage, the main use of it, in my experience, is that movement speed penalty. It's to disrupt the enemy to allow your teammates to do some serious damage. But with that said, The first upgrade grants the kudzu bomb a second charge. There is a 8-second cooldown now between charges. The second upgrade increases its duration by 2 seconds, bringing it up to 6 seconds from 4. And its third upgrade increases its damage by 46. That's a weird number. Places it at 101 damage per second, and it increases its radius from 6 to 8 meters, which looks as such. You sort of see that is... you'd be surprised how much extra 2 meters is. It's, you know, decent. It's a good ability. It's solid. It does its job. It does decent damage. It slows people. It can allow... You can obviously build into it to do a bunch of damage with it. It's quite disruptive because obviously, as you can see, the radius at like max rank is, you know, quite wide. So in a lot of like team fight scenarios, you can kind of get multiple enemies. Like say you're fighting under mid boss, you can basically cover the entire mid boss pit with your bomb. Like I always just call it the vine bomb. I didn't even know it was called the kudzu bomb. I don't even know what kudzu is. I feel like that's probably a word for something Spanish, but I don't know. Anyways, her second ability is known as Watcher's Covenant, which has a 16-meter range, a 12-second duration, and a 37-second cooldown. Gain bonuses and automatically connect with a nearby ally to share them. Healing is replicated among all those connected. Removes shooting move speed penalty, and you can press 2 again to lock onto a target. Connection requires a line of sight. The buffs that you get when connected is a 10% fire rate buff, which scales with spirit, a 10% bullet lifesteal, which also scales with spirit, and 25% of the healing done is replicated, and at base it can only tether to one person. Now this is why I say that Ivy is a pseudo support. As you can quite clearly see, as I described, this ability, you kind of connect yourself to a nearby teammate, and you both become stronger because of it. You both get the movement speed, or you both get the fire rate, you both get the bullet lifesteal, and you both replicate the healing that you receive. So, if you were to build healing items on, say, Ivy, you can seriously, like, heal the whole team sometimes. Like, just as an example, I'm sure somewhere, like, Spirit Support Ivy, right? Like, healing rate. Do you know the healing rate is literally 800. 300 health regen, and you're sharing that with your teammate if you're connected by Watcher's Covenant. That's just free health. Like, it's a free healing. You can obviously get a bunch of other healing items like Healing Booster, which would increase the amount of healing that you give out. Rescue Beam, which of course heals a target per percent of your max health. Healing Tempo, which is a really strong ability on characters that can heal. As you can see, read from the passive, applying heal to yourself or an ally grants the target bonus fire rate and bonus move speed. So if you had this item and you used Watcher's Covenant, even at base level, the teammate would get 50% fire rate and movement speed buff and bullet lifesteal, as well as getting the healing from it. Like, or anything you have. Like, this ability is really, really solid. Like, very, very good. But of course, you do kind of have to build into it. You can say, like, for me, it even has its uses actually in, say, a gun build for Ivy, because it grants the extra fire rate and bullet lifesteal. It's a very, very strong ability because you just, well, it's free stat buffs. And say you're paired up with someone like, I don't know, Lady Geist. Because, by the way, the healing is replicated amongst you all. So you're all going to benefit from the healing that either one of you produce. So say you're paired up with Lady Geist and she starts to suck the life out of someone. The both of you are going to get that heal. Or say, in an extreme scenario, Lady Geist is on low health and she manages to hit her ult on a full health Abrams or something. You're going to get a huge amount of heal from that. Like, she has some really good pairings. Like, Ivy can be she can be a menace if she's paired up with the right teammate. Like, even someone like Viscous. If Viscous goes in the cube and you have a tether between the two of you, to my knowledge, you both get the health regen. Like, Lady Geist, I would argue, is Ivy's best partner due to the fact that she has so much lifesteal in her kit anyways. But even then, again, I mentioned him earlier, Kelvin. You both benefit from the frost grenade explosion. That's a win across the board. But yeah, that's, by the way, I said all that, and that's without me even discussing the upgrades. But speaking of upgrades, the first upgrade gives you an extra 10% fire rate, which makes it go up to 20%. The second upgrade gives you an extra 2 meters per second movement speed bonus when tethered. And the third upgrade brings the tether count up to 2. meaning you can be so now you can be attached to 2 allies, benefit them by giving them both fire rate and bullet lifesteal and replicating the healing and a movement speed buff. You can see why I say that Ivy is basically a pseudo support. And remember, what does it have as a little symbol next to the fire rate and bullet lifesteal things? Oh, it scales with spirit, so it'll get even better as the game goes on. No, shocker. The only issue with this ability is probably its really long cooldown, which, 40 seconds. But, well, 37 seconds. That is a long cooldown, let's be real. That's a long-ass cooldown. But for what it's giving during its, 12-second duration, which, remember, can be buffed by items, yeah, it's not really that bad. And remember, you can reduce the cooldown by using items. This spirit support build, look, Transcendent cooldown is one of the first items that they should get during the late game. I mean, what else do you want me to say? It's a very, very, very solid ability. Very good, actually. No, I'm not going to say solid. No, this thing is good. And remember, it also removes the movement speed penalty when shooting. Even more benefits. It's got like 20 billion different benefits to it. So yeah, good, very good ability. But with that said, we move on to her third ability, known as Stone Form, which is a 6-meter range or radius. I think that's the radius icon. Yeah, the radius icon. It has a 42-second cooldown, and you turn yourself into impervious stone and smash into the ground, stunning and damaging enemies nearby. Heals you for a percentage of your max health, and you have some air control before falling. It does 75 damage at base. The stun duration at base is 0.75 seconds, and the max health heal is 6%, and it looks as such. You kind of like turn into an actual gargoyle. I know she is a gargoyle, but you turn into like a stone gargoyle, kind of float a little bit off of the ground, and then slam down to do damage and stun. If I remember rightly, you kind of hover in the air, even if you're like high up. Yeah, there is like a travel time to get down. So you will have, even like say you are in the air as I was just there, you'll still have some time, even when you start going down, to move forward, even though it is at a reduced rate. This ability is very solid as well, because of course, damaging and stunning people, I've already discussed in many of these videos how good stuns are. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, right? You can't do anything if you get stunned. But the max health heal is also something I would like to note, because it is max health. It is not a percentage. It's not 300 health, or it is a percentage. It's not a flat number. So it's not 300 health, which could be, negated by toxic bullets or something. It is always going to do 6% of your health and give it back to you, which synchronizes with Watcher's Covenant, because you're sharing that heal with your teammate. So you link up with someone, you do the stone form, and if you hit it, bang, both of you are getting the 6% heal. Well, okay, you'll get the 6%, they'll get 25% of that, because of obviously how their transference thing works with Watcher's Covenant. Yeah, it's a very good ability. Of course, its cooldown is very long, but that is solved by its first upgrade. Look at that transition. It reduces its cooldown by 19 seconds, bringing it all the way down to 23 from 42. Its second upgrade increases its damage to 150 and increases the stun duration to 1.25 seconds. I don't know why I took away the point just then. And on its third upgrade, you increase the max health heal to a whopping 19%. That's a lot of healing. That's 20% of your health, basically. And you're now stunning for a whole second. Now, a whole second don't sound too long. But if I just make a show, that's enough time for someone to do something, right? That's enough time for someone to do some damage. And of course, as I said, 20% of your health as a heal. And I do need to mention, when it says impervious stone and the fact that it's highlighted, when you're doing this ability, you can't be hurt. You are actually, like, you are immortal. You are unstoppable. You cannot be damaged. You cannot be stunned. You cannot be slowed. You cannot be anything. When you are impervious and in the stone form, like floating in the air, you can't be hurt, like, at all. So play it right, and you can almost guarantee getting it off every single time. It's a win for me. And yeah, as it says, like, you reduce the cooldown from 42 to 23. Like, that's way better. And remember, still affected by items such as Transcendent cooldown, meaning that, the cooldown could be even shorter, which is, of course, very good. But with that said, we move on to her ultimate, known as Airdrop, which is a 12-meter 12-meter range, and a 16-second duration, and a 100-second cooldown. You grab an ally and take flight with them. Drop your ally to cause an explosion, dealing spirit damage and applying applying slow and knock up. You and your ally gain a barrier when flying ends. While lifted, your ally gains bullet resist but cannot attack and deals 50% less damage. If you press the middle mouse button when charging the ability, you're allowed to fly without an ally, carrying a bomb instead. And you can drop your ally / bomb with the left mouse button. You can press W to fly faster, and if you hold control during cast, you can hold control during cast to reduce launch height. Holy shit, there is so much here. Like, I'm not even actually talking about the stats. It does 115 damage, gives you a 150 barrier. Your ally gets 40% bullet resist, and the displacement duration, so that being the knock up, is 1 second. The explode radius is 12 meters, the movement speed debuff is negative 30%, and the slow duration is 3 seconds. Oh my god, there's so much shit in this one ability. I've never actually read the description of it before. But yeah, as it says, you kind of, when you press 4, you'll have like this targeting selection. You can see you obviously can press the middle mouse button to cast it on yourself or deselect. But if I cast it on this training dummy, you'll kind of like fly upwards and you'll just be flying normally. I'm not pressing anything, just kind of, you know, flying in a straight line. You can go shift to go up and down, which will kind of halt your forward momentum in a bit. And if you press W, you will sort of speed up. So this is the normal speed, and then this is the extra speed, which, I mean, it's fun enough. It's a very good escape tool. Let's say that first. Like, of course it's going to be, you know, effective in a team fight, because you can obviously drop an ally, let's say, for example, you drop Dynamo into the middle of the team, and then he does his ult too. You see that there's a lot of synergy that you can do with it. Like, you could like drop 7 into the middle of the enemy team and then just have him ult. You could have Lash drop him, but he then uses his ult before he gets fully dropped, and then, you know, then everyone gets lashed. Even characters like someone like Billy would really benefit from the drop-in, if he can sustain himself. Abrams as well benefits from the drop-in. Characters that like to be kind of on the front lines would like to get picked up and dropped by an ability like this. But you're, of course, not going to want to drop someone like Vindicta into the fray, or someone like Paige. Mo and Krill could be really nasty if you drop them headfirst into a fight, especially considering the fact that they, you know, you apply a slow and a knock up if they get damaged by the explosion. But do remember, of course, that you can also cast it on yourself, which allows you to carry this sort of little bomb with you, and once you drop it, you'll then, of course, still have the same effect. So even if there isn't a teammate that you want to carry or can carry, you can still just, you know, get the full effects of the ult by dropping a bomb on them. But it is also, as I mentioned briefly just a second ago, a very good escape tool. If she's able to get off the ground, you are not going to be hitting Ivy. Like, she can just fly away. She can fly all the way to spawn, because it lasts like such a long time. I mean, look, I've basically been able to do like three laps around this building. But yeah, it's a very good ability, and of course, its damage and its combat barrier does scale with Spirit, so it can do some serious damage later on in the game with the right build. But on its first upgrade, you reduce the bullet resist of enemies hit by it by 20%, which would help further with characters like, say, dropping Billy into it, because a lot of his damage does come from melee or his gun, as I have now learnt after playing a few games as him. Well, more games as him. I already had played a few, but you get my point. On the second upgrade, you increase the default barrier size to 100 words. You increase the default combat barrier from 150 to 350, and increase the explode radius from 12 meters to 17 meters. And on its final upgrade, you apply silence to all enemies hit for 3 seconds. Do you see how many things are in this box? Look at all of these debuffs and shit. Look how much stuff there is here. Like, this ult is just literally just so stupid. So now, with this ult, right, at full upgrade, you can drop Dynamo headfirst into the team, and if he damages people, they will be slowed, knocked up, silenced, have less bullet resist, take a bunch of damage late game. What do you do? Like, she's a very synchronistic character. By the way, for those that don't know, silence makes it so that you can't use any of your abilities. So characters who would, usually get escape using their abilities can't. So for example, if you dropped someone on top of Mina, she can't use her bat form to kind of escape from the fight. Or someone like Lash can't just fling himself out of there. But yeah, like, you see what I mean by Ivy is a very synchronistic character. A lot of her stuff works well on its own, but if you have a teammate, it works even better. You can, because obviously you could just drop the bomb, and that's, fine enough, but you could drop Dynamo, or you could drop Abrams or Billy, and then you got some serious, like, collaborative potential. The stone form is good for damage and stun, but if you manage to link yourself up, I don't even need to go on about Watcher's Covenant, right? You already heard the entire spiel about how good this ability is. It's just insane. And it is very, like, teammate dependent. You will be very good with a teammate near you with Watcher's Covenant. But, like, if you stone form, it's fine on its own. But if you've got a teammate, you're linked to them, you're both getting this 20% heal, your teammate can now, sort of act upon the stun. And even, like, the bomb can be used for, the bomb's probably her most normal ability. You can just use it without really worrying about having a teammate around. Because, it just does decent damage, applies a movement speed debuff, which, of course, can still benefit teammates, because then they can catch up to people who have a movement speed debuff on them. So, yeah, Ivy's kit is very good, and it all kind of meshes well together, but there is the caveat that if she gets caught out on her own, she can kind of suffer. Because so much of her kit kind of not relies on having a teammate with her, but like if there is a teammate with her, she's way better. She's an absolute menace. There's a reason that the support builds are, so solid. I was playing gun build for the B-roll footage at the beginning because it's just a bit more fun to watch, really. But like, she can seriously be an absolute threat because she's kind of hard to hit as well. Like, admittedly, her model's kind of not small, but smaller than most characters. So she can kind of be a hard target to hit. And as you can see on the screen here, she has 4 bars of stamina at base. That's ignoring any upgrades that you decide to get, such as, extra stamina, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, she can kind of be a hard character to get. And of course, you can fly away as well. Got to mention that. So yeah, she can be a hard character to kind of like pin down. And she applies so much support to the team through either just displacements or stuns or slows, as well as, of course, the Link of Doom. So she's just a very, very good support and a very, very strong character. She was, I don't know if Deadlock has a meta per se. I'm going to be completely honest, this might be my hot take for the video. I think every character in this game is just good. I don't think there's any characters that kind of fall behind. Like, some of them are obviously going to be better, but every character in this game, to me, is good. They're all strong in their own special ways, which is actually insane that Valve has managed to make a game where every character is strong. Like, not just, oh, if you're really good at this one character, you'll get a bunch of benefit, but you could have been, like, just for example, Dead by Daylight, right? You could put all of your effort into learning how to play Trapper or learning how to play Wraith, but if you put all of your effort into Nurse, you would have a way easier time. You would be winning way more games. Just naturally. But someone who's really, really good at Drifter can still lose to someone who's really, really good at Viscous. Like, every character in this game has a shot at being really strong, probably due to how builds work in this game. But, like, literally, there's no bad characters in this game. I think that's insane that Valve's managed to do that. And this game ain't even out. It's got a better, like, it's got a better balancing system, or better balance than Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. Games that, have, actual competitive scenes. This game doesn't have comp yet, to my knowledge. I know we have, like, comp symbols, like, leaked, but does the game have comp? I don't know. It's not on the main menu. I haven't seen it. I might be just stupid and missing something. But anyways, enough about me talking about metas and who's good, what's not. I would now like to move on to talking about Ivy's design, which... Oh, I forgot... Whoops! I forgot to actually spawn in the character. Now, Ivy is an interesting case. She is a character who's kind of gone through multiple designs. She was one of the characters who recently got her updated model alongside Lady Geist, Vindicta, Lash, I think those, and Pocket. Those are the 5 that recently got their models updated when we got, all the new characters. And we did get Ivy's redesign leaked beforehand, and that leak made her look very cutesy. I'm going to show up a comparison of not only her old model before the recent redesign, but also the leak. Her old model was very, like, it definitely looked like a gargoyle. She had a very kind of, I don't want to say ugly, she had an ugly look to her. She's not actually ugly, like, of course, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, as they say, but by stereotypical standards, quote unquote normal standards, she was ugly, but that was her charm. She's a gargoyle. When have you ever seen an attractive looking gargoyle? Like, gargoyles always kind of just look a bit scary or a bit ugly, and that was what a lot of people liked about her, is that she did look, you know, kind of ugly, kind of scary, but she was really lovely, she was really sweet. But of course, Valve wanted to change the design, and we got the initial sort of redesign teaser leak, whatever, and she looked really cutesy. I saw it, and I was like, you know what, nah, I'm not really feeling that. It looks a bit too cutesy, which did not really sit right with me. But now we have this design that we have in game now, and I feel like personally they've struck a good balance. They've kind of managed to make her ugly per se, whilst also making her look more attractive simultaneously. She definitely looks like a gargoyle, right? She has sort of the clawed feet. I don't even know what you kind of call these types of feet, like, you know, the ones where they kind of like hooves almost. I don't know what to call them. But she has, like, you know, a spiky tail that sways side to side. Looks a bit like a Christmas tree on the end for some reason or another. Has, you know, stereotypical wings with the sort of curved ends on them, long ears, horns, sort of like this crooked set of teeth. Like, she has like she has a bunch of small front teeth, and then these two kind of big, they're not tusks, because tusks are the ones that go downwards, if I remember rightly. So there's something else. But like, she looks like a gargoyle, right? Obviously with some clothes on, but obviously they have kind of made her more cutesy in a sense. Like, her face, she does look cute. She has a cute face per se, but she still looks like a gargoyle to me, and that's obviously what they were trying to get across. The design that they proposed, or that got leaked, the leaked redesign before the one we have now, which again, you've already seen it, I've wrote it up on screen, that looked too cutesy. She almost looked like a hamster. Like, she looked like a cute animal, not a gargoyle brought to life. But I do think this current design has kind of struck a balance between the two. I don't think I'm fully happy with it. I do kind of wish her teeth were a bit more crooked. Like, say she had like kind of tusks folding over these other ones, kind of like how her original design had, I think. Don't quote me on that one. I know I'm showing the images and I'll probably have to correct myself in post, but still, I kind of wish her teeth were a bit more crooked. Like, she had a, like, sort of more, like, her body doesn't look very rocky, if that makes sense. Like, gargoyles are obviously made of rock, but hers just kind of looks very, she just looks really pale. I'm gonna be honest, there isn't like a rock texture. I know she's obviously been brought to life and the stone form is what she looked like beforehand, but I kind of wish her skin was a bit more rocky. But enough talking about, you know, past designs, redesigns, blah blah blah. I think the Ivy's design is really good as it is now. Obviously there's still some improvements we could make, but I do like it a lot. Per her name, I really like the ivy around her hands that she's kind of turned into makeshift gloves. I like that the ivy kind of drapes off of her gun, which kind of looks like those old Japanese guns, you know, the ones with the magazines on the side. I remember using them in like Call of Duty World at War. Those guns were always my favorite, weirdly. But she's got like a cool flat, is it a flat cap? I think it's called a flat cap. I'm not expert on, you probably can tell from previous videos, I'm not experts on clothes and stuff. She's got like baggy pants. I like the colors of her design. I do wish her skin was more rocky, as I said, but the green sort of maroon, is it maroon? Is that the right name? Sort of maroon plum outfit. I don't know, it all really works nicely. I like that she also has like sort of long scruffy hair. It kind of adds to that. It kind of, like, having scruffy hair kind of adds to the cute look, but also the kind of, you know, gargoyle-y look. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know, I just like Ivy's design. It's just a very solid design, and also incredibly popular with trans people. I've noticed that almost. I'm not going to call you guys out, but if I see you playing, if you main Ivy, I'm going to be sort of, I got my eye on you. We await your transition we await your transition. But like a lot of trans people play Ivy, I've noticed that, and that's really awesome. I really like to see that, you know, people, I love it when like sort of communities kind of attach themselves onto characters even without said characters being like represented in any way, shape or form. Like I don't think there's any trans characters in Deadlock yet, of course. I do love Valve. They are a very progressive company. I mean, this entire game is incredibly inclusive and incredibly diverse, which is always lovely to see. And speaking of inclusion and diversity, Ivy is Spanish, which that's cool. I like that. Look, as I said in the Infernus video, I am the woker. I love diversity. I love diversity in my video games. I like Overwatch so much because every character is just so diverse. And honestly, I actually wish Overwatch was a little more diverse. I mean, it's cool and all to get, you know, another Chinese character in Wu Yang, but I don't know, somewhere from some place that doesn't really get much representation. Like I've always liked the fact that each Valorant character is like a completely different place, completely different country. Like, I don't know, can we have like a Thai? We already have a Thai character in Valorant. Can you have someone from Turkey in Valorant? Or no, not in Turkey, Overwatch. A character from Turkey and Overwatch. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent about diversity and inclusion and stuff, blah, blah, blah. I really like diversity in my games. I absolutely love it. I love seeing just different cultures and people represented. And I love it. I love when people like attach themselves to a character, even if that character isn't like, you know, gay or trans or blah, 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 but they kind of like headcanon it. I don't know. That makes me happy to see. I'm glad that Ivy is one such character that a lot of trans people have kind of like connected and clicked with. It's nice to see. I really love it. But yeah, I like Ivy's design a lot. She definitely looks like a gargoyle. I do wish, of course, there was some more gargoyle-y look, like maybe her teeth were more crooked or her body kind of looked a bit more rocky per se. But otherwise, I really like Ivy's design. Looks very neat. I'm glad that she got her redesign. I'm glad it wasn't, you know, not the abomination that got leaked, but I'm glad it's not as cutesy as the one that got leaked. Yeah. With that said, we have now come to the end of my very rambly video. Like, comment, and subscribe if you've made it this far and trudged through the trenches of my autistic rambles. I do appreciate it a lot. I'm glad that people are listening to all that I have to say. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whether that be a good evening, afternoon, morning, etc. And the next video in this series will be about, as someone kindly pointed out in my comments, the true Snowball King. That being Kelvin.